Hey guys! This is our day 2 of Max and the Gatekeeper. We're on chapter 13. So we just ended with the creature pulling off Max's hood, and he and Alan's eyes met. So Alan might have seen him. Okay, chapter 13. The Xenoses. Cindy studied the bands around the creature's legs while the beast lay still. So we're back to Cindy. She looked around for something to cut him free, but found nothing. Then she discovered that she could pull one of the loops over the creature's back foot. It would create enough slack to remove the whole thing. It would pinch the creature's back leg in the process. Cindy placed her hand on his foot. How long do we have? Not sure. I think I can untie you, but it might hurt. She peered into the creature's eyes, and they were full of fear. If you can't free me, my fate will be filled with pain and then death. Cindy tugged on the rope to check for slack. It moved within an inch of clearing the foot, but then grew tight. She touched his foot again. Are you ready? Yes. So remember, they can speak to each other through their minds. That's what they're talking back and forth is. Cindy yanked the rope hard, and it almost cleared his heel. She let the rope fall back into its original position, and then she pulled again. It was close, but she couldn't quite get it all the way over. In the distance, a humming drew Cindy's attention. Cindy's eyes met the creature's, and she could tell it was thinking the same thing she was. The hovercraft was returning. She placed her hand on the creature's foot. I'll be right back, I promise. She ran into the trees. The vibration increased in intensity as Cindy reappeared. She dragged an old tree branch, which she set behind the creature's hind legs. She stood on the branch so that she could lift the rope upward, giving her the leverage she hoped would loosen the rope. She then took hold of the rope and jerked as hard as she could. The rope barely slid over the creature's heel and tightened like a vice on its foot. The jungle floor trembled as the hovercraft approached. The intensity grew as if it would appear at any moment. Cindy jumped to the ground and circled the creature's front legs. Then, seizing the rope with both hands, she leaned backwards with all her might. The rope inched forward. The humming was so strong, Cindy expected them to catch her as well. Then the buzz of several smaller crafts filled the forest. Cindy thrashed back and forth using her weight when she lost her footing. To keep herself from landing on her back, she held onto the rope. The sudden snap of her body weight generated enough force to release the creature's foot from the rope. The rope swung loose and Cindy hit the ground with a thud. There were voices nearby. Cindy sprang to her feet and untangled the creature's legs. Once free, the creature rolled onto its feet and then knelt in front of her. It rubbed its head against Cindy's shoulder. Get on. Cindy clutched 2 fistfuls of fur and scrambled onto its back. The beast rose up on its feet and darted through the jungle. Cindy held tight to keep the creature's movements from throwing her off. Every now and then, she ducked to avoid low-hanging tree branches. Do you have a name? Cindy asked as she lay low on the creature's back. I am Elle. What's your name? Cindy. It's nice to meet you, Cindy. Pleasure to meet you, Elle. Cindy smiled in spite of the situation. Elle sprinted for a long time before he stopped for a break by a small stream. He lowered his head to the river to drink. Cindy slid off his back and knelt to quench her thirst. She splashed cold water on her face. She hadn't slept much in the last 24 hours. And worse, she hadn't eaten. She glanced around, wondering where they were in relation to the gateway. Elle was staring at her, so she went to him and pulled her hand on his neck. Thank you, Elle thought. You're welcome. Are they following us? Yes. Cindy removed her hand as a dark thought entered her mind. Why was she placing so much trust in a creature that had been stalking her? Had he been hunting her for food or trying to warn her? She summed up enough courage to set her hand on Elle's back. Were you chasing me for food? Yes. She jerked her hand away as if she had touched a hot stove. Elle gazed back at her with her sad eyes as if imploring her to touch him again. Cindy returned her hand to his back. I didn't know what you were. I was curious because I have never smelled your kind before. And yes, I considered you food. Cindy kept her nerve and didn't remove her hand. And now? Nothing will touch you without going through me. Thank you. Cindy let her hand slip down to her side. Elle then lifted a foot onto Cindy's shoulder and almost knocked her over. We cannot linger. They will be coming. He lowered his foot and started marching along the stream. Cindy stayed even with Elle so that she could keep contact with his neck. Are there any fruits to eat in this jungle? She hoped that Elle was an omnivore. Yes. Elle continued following the stream. They walked for a while when they came to an area that had some strange plants. They reminded Cindy of watermelon plants, but the large round objects growing on the vines were as hard as rocks. Elle picked up one of the orbs in his teeth and bit down, cracking the outer shell. He dropped it in front of Cindy and then scooped up another. This time he rolled the ball around in his mouth and spit out the shell fragments before eating the rest. Cindy peeled away the cracked shell to find a soft inner fruit. She broke off a small piece and put it in her mouth. The texture of that was of a hard peach, and the taste was very sweet. It reminded her of something, but she couldn't decide what. She devoured the whole thing. Elle stood over her after eating several of the fruits and held up his foot like a dog wanting to shake paws. Cindy realized Elle had something to say and accepted his foot. We must go. I can hear them. They aren't far. He knelt, and Cindy climbed onto his back. Once Cindy was secure, he bounded forward at a good speed. It was hard for Cindy to tell directions, but she figured Elle knew which way to go. Why are these things hunting us? They are the Xenazis, a brutal race who delight in the torture and suffering of others. What do they want with you? Cindy desired to learn more about their pursuers. For sport. I would have to fight another animal or group of Xenazis. They are always capturing animals to use in their games. In the end, all are destroyed. That's horrible. The brutal nature of these things shocked Cindy. Where are we going to hide? We're just running until they give up. How long will that take? I'm not sure, Elle responded, and Cindy noticed a different feeling even with this thought. Even though she was communicating with Elle through her thoughts, Cindy could also sense a tone. She wondered if her feelings were also transmitted to him. What do you mean? Elle interrupted her thoughts. When people speak my language, you can sometimes tell how they feel by the sound of their voice. I can tell your emotions much the same way by your thoughts. I understand. Even though Elle was a hideous creature, Cindy felt safe with him. Elle, if we lose the Xenazis, can you take me to the spot where you first picked up my scent? Yes. They headed in the same direction for quite some time. Elle set a good pace. She ran for a while and then trotted for an interval. Cindy assumed he did this for the rest because she couldn't tell if he was tired. He never thought about it. Elle paused for another short break after a long sprint. He kneeled to let Cindy get off. She stroked his back affectionately and felt he had appreciated it. Have we lost them? Cindy asked. I don't know. I haven't heard or smelled them for a while. That's why I decided to rest. Cindy sat with her back against a tree and wondered how her parents were doing. At least this time they couldn't blame Max or Grandpa because they were out of town. She looked through the jungle canopy at the patch of sky. The position of the sun suggested it was late afternoon. Elle moved to Cindy, his eyes darting back and forth. He acted anxious about something, so she reached out and put her hand on his leg. They're near. Elle dropped to his knees so Cindy could get on, and then Elle bolted in the direction they had come from. Why are we going this way? They're approaching from the other direction. Elle increased his speed. We could be heading into a trap. I know. I'll turn again in a little bit. Have they chased you before? And if so, how long did it take you to lose them? Yes, and they gave up quickly. This is the hardest I've ever seen them hunt for anything. I think they're after you. What? Why? I think they're curious, like I was. I'm sure they saw your tracks where you released me. Cindy remembered her experience of the previous night when this rain saved her. She was sure they had sparked her curiosity then. She related the story to Elle as they navigated through the jungle. He told her they would want to catch her. After a long run, Elle changed his speed to an all-out sprint. Trees and plants changed to a blur of colors as Elle accelerated faster than Cindy thought possible. What's wrong? Cindy gripped Elle's fur as tight as she could. They're gaining on us, and they're closing from several directions. What are we going to do? Her heart threw itself against her ribcage. Elle's description of the Xenazis terrified her. I know a hiding place, but I'm not sure if it will save us this time. He continued fleeing at full speed until they came to another river. A flood of water fell over Cindy as Elle leapt into the river and started charging upstream. The river was only a couple of feet deep. but it still slowed Elle's progress. His bulky body threw water everywhere, and his mammoth feet slammed in and out of the river. Hovercraft zoomed somewhere behind them. Cindy scanned for the Zanosi's craft, but it was difficult to spot anything the way they bounced up and down on Elle's back. The roar of raging water grew with each passing moment and soon drowned out the approaching hovercrafts. As Cindy and Elle rounded a bend, a waterfall thundered in front of them. Elle darted straight towards the falls. The explosion of the water smashing into the rocks swallowed up every other noise. Cindy gripped Elle's back tighter as he leapt through the falls, and a cave of icy water soaked her. A moment later, Elle lay in a small cave behind the falls. Okay, we are going to stop there for the day. So, I want you guys to comment below what you think is going to happen next. Because right now, it sounds like the Zanosi's were right on their tail. Okay, bye guys!